Thank you, Urs. This is by far the longest introduction I've ever heard about myself, but thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. It's just such an important event and such a pleasure to see all of you here. So dear family, friends, alumni, staff, faculty, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the graduation ceremony for the class of 2023J of our MBA participants. Welcome. It is a very special ceremony because, as Urs said, this is the 20th one for me and the last one. You know, I've done 20 of those, and every time it's just so inspirational to see our young alumni getting on the stage and getting their diplomas. It is also a very special ceremony because we have really important guests here. We have our graduation speaker, Nicola Hieronymus, who is the CEO of L'Oréal. We have a great relationship with L'Oréal, as many of you know. I think that he's probably the third CEO out of the 6 that have spoken at our INSEAD graduations. Also with L'Oréal, of course, we have a lot of alumni who are working there. And one of the longest serving CEOs was our alumnus, Sir Lindsay Owen-Jones. L'Oréal has been supporting us with scholarships and with a chair held by Professor Pierre Chandon. We also have here our own chair of our board, Adress Jacobs. Adress is my boss, so I have to, for the next 64 days, and I have to perform really well, but it is really great pleasure to have him here. And we have also the president of the Chateau Fontainebleau, Madame Labordette, with us here. We signed a really great agreement in 2015 with the Chateau that allowed us to have all the reunions and the graduation here. So please join me in welcoming these esteemed guests here today. But of course, the most important people are you, our graduates today. Today is the beginning and not the end of your relationship with INSEAD, because you are the INSEAD of the future. So I want to say a couple of words about INSEAD before wishing you best of luck in your future journey. What is INSEAD? Yesterday, in fact, we had classes from 1963, 68, and 73 coming back for their reunions, 50, 55, and 60 years. It was actually the first class that came to the reunion 1 week after I stepped in as a dean. So it was my first reunion and the last reunion as well for the same classes. So in 2013, I was literally 8 days into the job, and I was sitting with the class of 1963 over lunch. So I look at the guy sitting next to me, Günther Mauerhofer, who was here yesterday as well, and asked him, Günther, he is from Austria, why did you decide to come to INSEAD? You know, today we have all kinds of, rankings, alumni out there, success. We have all kinds of marketing tricks to grad students here. But in 1962, we had just graduated 100 people from the school. He looked at me and he smiled and he brightened up and he said, I heard about this school in the forest of Fontainebleau where everybody was getting from all over Europe. So instead of fighting with each other, we wanted to build businesses together. So he said, I got into my car, I drove to Fontainebleau, and it was the best year in my life. And I was thinking, really? 1962, 63 was the best year in your life. And then over and over again, I hear the same thing. It is the best year in my life. And I usually tell this story at the opening ceremony, but just because I saw him yesterday, and I want to relay how people from INSEAD year after year say the same thing. We started here actually in the Chateau Fontainebleau in 1959. The first class was just next to the staircase in a classroom for 53 students. The school was started with a very noble idea by Georges Doriot. The idea was to promote peace and prosperity so that the Brits, the Germans, the French do not fight with each other as they have been doing successfully for many centuries, but actually we get together to understand each other and build businesses together. For the next 60 years, the school has recorded many, many successes. We were very innovative. We created the first MBA outside North America, the first one-year MBA. We created the first simulations, all kinds of innovation in executive education. Now, virtual reality cases. In 1967, we were one of the first schools to actually admit female participants. And Hélène Ploix was yesterday also here celebrating her 55th anniversary. You have to watch her video because it is so inspiring to see what kind of hurdles she had to go through in order to join INSEAD at the time. We had opened the campus in 2000 in Singapore, Abu Dhabi, San Francisco, Hoffman Institute, so many things. The school has achieved a lot, but I would say today that the speed at which we're moving is too slow. We might be the best, we are the best business school in the world, but the question is, are we doing enough in order to address the challenges that the world is facing? When I started in 2013 as a dean, issues like climate change, sustainability, economic inequality were not the regular front-page news stories that they're rightly so today. And yet the world was already facing incredible challenges. Challenges related to environment and climate change, challenges related to social cohesion, populism, rising inequality, challenges coming from the implications of new technologies and the future of work. To understand actually what is happening to us, we need to go back in time. 2,000 years ago, people had only basic food and shelter. For the next 18 centuries, 1,800 years, the standards of living did not increase that much. According to the statistical research, it's about 50% higher. The lifespan of people was still 30 to 40 years. And then, in the last 200 years, since 1820, incomes around the world have increased 15 times. All this growth, all this innovation that we see today is the result only of 200 years of growth. When I teach macroeconomics, I talk about this a lot, and I'm sure that my colleagues also talk about this magical growth that lifted so many people out of poverty. But what we do not talk about are the byproducts of these industrial revolutions. Environmental damage is pervasive, and the most important thing that we have to remember today is that the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century found the political and the social system incoherent, incompatible with the economic growth. As a result, there was unrest, 34 wars fought by the British Army only in the 19th century. 1848, Marx and Engels wrote the Communist Manifesto, paving the way for very oppressive regimes around the world in the 20th century. So industrial revolutions, and we're living now in the fourth industrial revolution, have byproducts that have unwanted consequences. There is a quote from Yuval Harari from the 21 Lessons from the 21st Century that I want to share with you. The challenge posed to humankind in the 21st century by infotech and biotech is arguably much bigger than the challenge posed in the previous era by steam engines, electricity, and railroads. We cannot afford failed models. The liberal democracy rose from the 19th century incompatibility of aristocratic feudal regimes, but also communism, fascism, and other regimes. We cannot afford this as a result of this industrial revolution anymore. In his book, Life 3.0, Professor Max Tegmark, who is a professor of physics at MIT, discussed several possibilities for the future of the world with the advancement of artificial intelligence. And he concluded that at the end of the day, what will happen to the world depends on us. If we wait for the market to determine the outcome, we may not like the result. So that's why 10 years ago, we started talking at INSEAD how business must be a force for good. Business as a force for good has always been in our DNA, from the very start with the idea of Georges Doriot getting people together and creating a very diverse school. But today, it is a much bigger imperative than ever before. What does it mean to be a business as a force for good? It means two things in my mind. First and foremost, the only way to reduce poverty, to eradicate poverty in the world, is economic growth. In China, from 850 million people in 1980 who lived below the extreme poverty line of $1.90 a day, by 2022, extreme poverty was eradicated. Globally, 1.6 billion people have been lifted out of poverty in the last 40 years. It's a miracle. It has never happened in the history of the world before, such a large population to be lifted out of poverty. And when you think, how did it happen? It happened because of one and only one thing, and that is economic growth. And the only engine of economic growth is business creation. So initially we're thinking, our mission is very simple. Get all these bright people from all over the world, give them the tools, the skills, the knowledge, send them back, and they'll create growth and eradicate poverty. Unfortunately, that is not enough. So that's why we have a second, broader interpretation of business as a force for good. In the process of value creation for the company today, we have to think, what is the value that we create for the society, for your employees? What is the value that we create for the environment, or what is the impact we have on the environment? Decision-making has become much, much more complex than it used to be before. And governments, NGOs are not sufficient. Today, business has to act in order to ensure that we make the right decisions. We have to understand that we are the ones who create the reality. There is physical laws and there are biological laws, but a lot of the social constructions are our own creation. We create norms, we draw borders, we create countries, and with this, sometimes we believe that these norms are God-given truths. They are not. Until 1960s, until 1970s, many schools believed that only men should go to business schools. Today, we recognize that this social norm is outdated and discriminatory and ridiculous. But we have to ask ourselves, what are the norms today that the future generation will find ridiculous and outdated? We want, as INSEAD, we want our future business leaders, not only to create phenomenally successful companies, but the ones who create value for the society and maximize social impact. And there is urgency to act now, because we're creating so many imbalances between the current and the future generation, between people and nature, between the rich and the poor. So, actually, the imbalances between men and women do persist still. So, do we want to be at the vanguard of this change? Do we want to be the ones who are addressing this? Or do we want to leave everything to the market forces and be bystanders? And by we, I don't mean some abstract we, the world out there. I mean the class of 2023J. So I have a request to you. You're joining the alumni community. INSEAD is the business school for the world. So I have to ask you, in my last speech, how will you make what INSEAD stands for your own belief and your own value? How will you contribute to our mission of making business as a force for good in the world? We're a different school. We're a mission-driven school with strong values. We want the world to admire you, not only for what you have done for the bottom line of your company, but to admire you also for what you have done for society and the environment. Today is the beginning and not the end of your INSEAD journey. You are our ambassadors. The reputation of the school is coming from you. So let us champion diversity, because it is the key to strengthening individuals, businesses, institutions, and society. We need to promote peace and prosperity for every individual, community, and country in the world. We are proud that you chose INSEAD to do your MBA here. I have no doubt that the MBA class of 23J will change the world for the better and contribute to the prominence of our alumni and our school, which from now on you can call your own. The world is facing incredible challenges. You acquired the knowledge, the skills, the tools in order to turn these challenges into opportunities. You'll be facing an uphill battle, but you have to win, because you are INSEAD. You're not alumni now, you are our partners in this magical journey called INSEAD. Congratulations, thank you, and good luck, amazing class of 2023J. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ilian, for your words at your last graduation. I will miss doing those in the future. And thank you for all you've done for the school. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ilian's boss, as he named him, Dr. Andreas Jacobs, chairman of the INSEAD board, MBA23J, member of the board of Jacobs Holding. Andreas studied law and finished that degree with a doctorate, and afterwards joined INSEAD here in Fontainebleau and completed his MBA as a 1990D. Andreas started out post-INSEAD as a consultant, then became an independent entrepreneur with stakes in several companies, what we call, I guess, private equity today. Later on, he held various chair roles in companies such as Adecco, Barry Callebaut, and others, and is a co-founder of Genui, which is a partner, where he's a partner of private equity portfolio. At INSEAD, Andreas was appointed chairman of the board in 2015 and has been accompanying and overseeing INSEAD's board and alumni since then. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Andreas Jacobs to the stage. Thank you.